Welcome, traveler of the quiet hours. You've found your way again to this space between breath and thought, where light bends slowly and sound seems to float without weight. Tonight, we'll drift toward a world too vast to hold in memory, a planet so large it gathers 1,000 others in its pull. Jupiter, the ancient giant, the keeper of storms, the slow heartbeat of the solar system. As you settle deeper into stillness, imagine the color of distance amber and cream swirling together, bands of gas moving endlessly around a center that never rests. There is no solid ground there, no shore to step on, only clouds layer upon layer, folding in on themselves, each one whispering of hydrogen, helium, and time. If you listen closely, you might hear it. A sound not carried by air, but by gravity. A low hum that holds the rhythm of centuries. That is Jupiter's voice, a song made of storms. The sleep space once said, Jupiter does not simply exist, it breathes. Its winds do not rage, they sing. And so, as we begin our quiet journey, let each fact become a note, each image a breath in the symphony of sleep. Breathe in the deep pull of space. Breathe out the soft hush of clouds 100 times taller than mountains. We are drifting now, past moons like tiny lanterns, past belts of lightning that circle the equator, past the edge where light dissolves into shadow. Here, nothing hurries. Even the storms move with purpose, slow, ancient, endless. Let the noise of your day fall away. Let Jupiter take it, because tonight we are going to listen to the music of a planet that never sleeps, and yet somehow always dreams. If you could stand in Jupiter's clouds, though, of course, you couldn't. The world beneath you would be made entirely of motion. Beneath those pale belts and amber ribbons lies the great red spot, a storm so large that it could swallow 3 Earths whole. It has been spinning for at least 350 years, perhaps much longer, a single, unbroken breath of weather, turning endlessly within itself. Paradox hums softly through its color, red that isn't fire, motion that brings no destruction. On Jupiter, nothing solid exists to slow the wind. It sweeps around forever, feeding itself on the energy of deeper layers, its edges rolling like silk in the dark. Lightning flashes beneath, unseen but sensed silent strobes lighting a vast theater of gas. Each rotation takes 6 Earth days, yet to Jupiter it is only an instant, one slow heartbeat in its endless rhythm. Explanation drifts gently into focus. The Great Red Spot is an anticyclone, a high-pressure system swirling counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere. The winds at its edges reach more than 400 miles per hour, but near the center, calm reigns. Its crimson wee comes from chemicals lifted high into sunlight, ammonia, sulfur, and phosphorus reacting into color. When the sunlight fades, the red deepens into rust, then ochre, then rose, a palette of patience. Reflection moves through the quiet air. How strange that chaos, left long enough, can become beauty. The storm that never ends no longer feels violent. It feels devoted, a reminder that constancy itself can be a form of grace. You too have tempests that turn inside you, thoughts that refuse to fade, memories that circle like wind. But even storms can settle into music if you give them enough time. Breathe in the steady pulse of centuries. Breathe out the surrender that comes with knowing you don't have to stop the spinning. Above, sunlight catches the upper clouds, turning them the color of old gold. Below, deeper layers roll unseen, calm and infinite. If you could drift downward through Jupiter's clouds, you would fall through layers of sound. At first, there is wind low and constant, like the ocean's breath slowed to eternity. Then, deeper still, the air thickens, and sound begins to change. It doesn't travel through open space anymore. It moves through weight, through pressure, so dense that thunder becomes vibration felt, not heard. Paradox hums below the surface, a world made of gas behaving like liquid, storms that roar in silence. Lightning flashes here too, but each bolt is a world unto itself up to 10 times stronger than Earth's, spreading across clouds hundreds of miles wide. The air glows for a moment, then folds back into darkness, the energy swallowed before it can echo. It is thunder that never breaks, a heartbeat contained in cloud. Explanation flows downward. Jupiter's atmosphere is a vast gradient of hydrogen and helium, layered with ammonia and water vapor. As pressure builds, gas begins to behave like liquid metal, conducting electricity. These violent discharges occur miles below the visible tops, forming megastorms that circle the planet. NASA's Juno spacecraft has recorded their radio bursts, whispers of thunder, in electromagnetic language. What we cannot hear directly, we can still translate into song. Reflection softens the science into meaning. We live surrounded by noise, but the universe speaks mostly in vibration, not words, not volume, but resonance. On Jupiter, thunder is not destruction, it is dialogue between pressure and patience. So, too, are your own storms. Sometimes your emotions don't need to be spoken, only felt, only witnessed. Breathe in, imagine that low hum traveling through you, steady and ancient. Breathe out, let the vibration settle your ribs, like calm after lightning. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes. And somewhere below, sound becomes light again, energy turned inward, radiating from within the planet itself. Jupiter's heart glows faintly in infrared, releasing more heat than it receives from the sun. A reminder, sometimes warmth does not come from outside, but from the core that refuses to cool. Deeper still, beneath the roaring storms and the endless clouds, there lies something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the solar system. A sear that isn't water, a light that isn't fire, an ocean of metallic hydrogen. Imagine pressure so immense that atoms no longer hold their shape. Hydrogen, the simplest element, collapses under its own weight until electrons roam freely, turning the invisible gas into liquid metal. Paradox glimmers softly, light trapped in darkness. Down here there is no color, only radiance without surface. If you could see it, it would shimmer like quicksilver, a metallic ocean that reflects nothing because there is no light to reflect. This strange sear doesn't stay still. It churns slowly, conducting electricity like a living core. Jupiter's immense magnetic field, the strongest of any planet, is born from this motion, a slow, molten heartbeat felt across millions of miles. Explanation hums like a current. As hydrogen molecules compress under pressures millions of times greater than Earth's atmosphere, they overlap into a fluid state where protons swim freely among electrons. This metallic hydrogen extends for tens of thousands of kilometers, forming the planet's inner engine. It generates heat, magnetism, and gravity's soft thunder. Juno's instruments detect its presence not by sight but by sound, the way gravity waves tremble through the planet's layers. Reflection glows from within. Perhaps we too hold such invisible oceans inside us. Forces that no one sees, but that shape everything. What we call emotion might simply be energy under pressure, becoming luminous in its silence. Breathe in. Imagine that hidden glow. Breathe out. Let the weight above you press gently until you feel still, dense, whole. Surrounding the great planet are its children, more than 80 moons, each a small world, each following its own rhythm around the giant's embrace. Some are tiny shards of rock and ice, drifting like thought. But 4 stand out, bright enough to be seen from Earth, with a telescope no larger than a coffee cup, the Galilean moons: Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Paradox dances here, one parent, 4 utterly different lives. Io burns, Europa freezes, Ganymede hums with magnetism, and Callisto dreams in silence. Together, they form a symphony of opposites. Io is covered in volcanoes hundreds, erupting so constantly that its surface never stays the same. Europa hides an ocean beneath ice, thicker than any glacier on Earth. Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, carries its own magnetic field, a planet in all but name. And Callisto, ancient and cratered, remains the quiet witness to it all, unchanging and eternal. Explanation orbits steadily. Tidal forces from Jupiter's gravity stretch and compress these moons, creating internal heat. Io's molten core, Europa's liquid ocean, Ganymede's shifting crust, all are born from this gravitational music. The pull and release are constant, a dance of invisible hands shaping worlds from silence. Reflection expands with each orbit. Family, too, is like this, held together not by sameness, but by gravity, by the unseen force that keeps us turning around one another. Jupiter teaches that connection doesn't require closeness. Even distance can be devotion. Inhale the thought of 80 worlds moving in harmony. Exhale the quiet wonder that such chaos can still find rhythm. At Jupiter's poles, the universe paints in electricity. Curtains of blue and violet light ripple endlessly across the darkness auroras, born from magnetic storms that never cease. They are not like Earth's shy northern lights. They are colossal, permanent, burning brighter than all other planetary lights combined. If you stood above them, you would see rivers of energy tracing invisible lines into space, connecting Jupiter to its moons in silent current. Paradox shimmers at the edges. Fire without flame, storm without sound. These auroras are fueled not by sunlight, but by motion-charged particles drawn from Io's volcanic plumes, spiraling down magnetic field lines at nearly the speed of light. They collide with atmospheric gases and ignite into light, an endless electrical rain that dances across the poles in radiant stillness. Explanation glows like plasma. Ultraviolet and X-ray telescopes capture these displays, showing ovals that flicker, pulse, and reform every few minutes. The magnetic field extends millions of miles into space, sweeping past moons and trapping particles in a vast, rotating halo. Each flash is an echo of energy released from the planet's unseen depths, a pulse in the bloodstream of Jupiter's magnetosphere. Reflection becomes light itself. In every life, there are unseen fields that hold you invisible forces, that keep you glowing even when you think you've dimmed. Jupiter's auroras remind us that illumination often begins in darkness, that energy finds its own way to shine. Breathe in the soft flicker of that truth. Breathe out and let it linger, like the last trace of starlight on an endless horizon. And somewhere above the planet's night, those lights keep flowing, ancient, tireless, eternal. A crown for a sleeping giant, a hymn for silence too vast to name. From far away, Jupiter looks like a sleeping tiger. Amber belts, ivory zones, cocoa swirls, looping the circumference of a world too big for any map. Up close, those stripes are rivers of wind, eastward jets, westward jets, stacked like pages in an endless book. Each band is a different weather, a different altitude, a different flavor of cloud. Ammonia crystals high and pale. Deeper, ammonium hydrosulfide like faint cinnamon. Below, water clouds. Heathen and heavy. Paradox hums through the symmetry. Perfect stripes born from chaos. Convection pumps warm gas upward. It cools, condenses, and sinks again, cells of breath, the size of continents. Rotation stretches those cells into ribbons. The Coriolis force combs them into steadfast lanes. Belts, darker, are sinking air dry, clearing, revealing deeper browns. Zones, brighter, are rising moist, cloud-rich, reflecting sunlight in a creamy hush. Where jets shear, they curl into vortices, stringing pearls of storms along the edges, like beads on a slow-moving necklace. Explanation turns its quiet gears. The planet rotates in just under 10 Earth hours, a spin so fast that day and night are whispers. That speed, combined with deep heat rising from within, drives dozens of jet streams, far more than Earth's modest handful. Juno's microwave eyes peer beneath the clouds, finding that the stripes penetrate thousands of kilometers, not just surface paint, but structure weather, with roots like forests of wind. Reflection rests in the rhythm. Inhale, picture the pale zones lifting. Exhale, see the belts settle darker, calmer. Even your thoughts have belts and zones, places that rise with ideas, places that rest in clarity. You do not need to choose one. You are the planet that breathes in stripes. Imagine a cloud, so tall it stacks mountains upon mountains, anvil tops, brushing the upper haze, while roots plunge into warm, pressurized darkness. Inside, droplets collide, separate charge, and build an electricity older than rain. Lightning blooms 10 times stronger than Earth's, flashing sideways through ammonia and water vapor, turning night into violet daylight for the length of a heartbeat. Paradox flickers in the glare. In a world without land or ocean, thunderstorms still invent rivers, vertical ones. Charge separates as ice, slush, and vapor hustle in updrafts. But the chemistry is stranger here. Ammonia lowers water's freezing point, making a slushy mix that clumps into soft hail. Scientists call them mushballs, porous, snowball-like pellets that grow as they fall, sweeping ammonia from the upper cloud decks down into the depths. In this way, lightning and snow remake the atmosphere, shuttling ingredients through a conveyor that begins in flash and ends in quiet. Explanation stays gentle. Juno hears lightning as low frequency, whistlers, radio echoes curling along magnetic field lines. Optical sensors catch the brief ghost-bright strokes, often near the poles where convection thrives. As mushballs descend, they carry ammonia to warmer layers, where it dissolves and disappears from view. Later, updrafts return it, and storms begin again. A planet learns to circulate itself by flash, by fall, by patience. Reflection cools the heat. Not all illumination lasts. Some arrives only to rearrange what needs moving. Your life knows this weather, the sudden clarity, the softening aftermath, the quiet redistribution of what belongs deeper and what must rise. Breathe in the flash, breathe out the snow. Let the storm be an instrument, not an argument. Around Jupiter extends an unseen dominion, a magnetic bubble so vast it would swallow the sun and still hunger for space. This is the magnetosphere, lines of force flowing from poles to equator, a windless ocean that traps charged particles and sets them circling in luminous captivity. Where it faces the solar wind, it compresses to a hard, bright bow. Behind, it trails a magnetotail, tens of millions of kilometers long, a river of night that sometimes brushes Saturn's realm. Paradox lives in the scale, a planet of storms wrapped in a field more like a star's. Deep within, metallic hydrogen churns. Its currents generate a dynamo, and the dynamo writes geometry on space. Particles from the sun and from Io's volcanic breath spiral along the field lines, painting auroras, charging belts, carving radiation zones, fierce enough to gnaw at spacecraft. Yet inside this harshness is order, harmonics, waves, resonances, a quiet music of charged things. Explanation speaks in instruments. Juno's magnetometers feel the field's pulse. Radio receivers hear chorus waves, rising tones like dawn birds in a forest of plasma. The magnetosphere rotates with the planet, sweeping up plasma into a co-rotating disk. When the solar wind strikes harder, the boundary ripples. Reconnection snaps and rethreads the night tail, releasing energy that rushes back toward the poles as brighter aurora. It is weather, but of magnetism, storms, of lines and light. Reflection softens the physics into comfort. You, too, have fields, boundaries the world cannot see, strengths it can still feel. You hold and release, you gather and glow. Some energies you must trap until they calm. Some you must guide back to your own poles to become light. Breathe in, imagine the great field widening around you. Breathe out, let the harsh particles become music as they spiral home. Orbiting close to Jupiter's vast pool is Io, a moon alive with fire. Its surface is a mosaic of sulfur plains, orange and black, shifting every day beneath towers of smoke that rise taller than Mount Everest. There are no seas, no air, only volcanoes, hundreds of them, erupting with liquid rock into vacuum. Yet from afar, Io glows softly, like a coal refusing to fade. Paradox flickers. How can something so violent appear so calm? Jupiter's gravity stretches Io as it orbits, flexing its crust like clay. That endless kneading turns friction into heat and heat into flame. The moon has no choice but to burn a small world kept molten by love that's too strong. Explanation whispers in motion. Sulfur and sodium vapors paint Io's thin exosphere yellow, while frozen sulfur dioxide snows at the poles. The plumes arch into space, fall back as frost, then melt again under new eruptions. Its orbit trembles in resonance with Europa and Ganymede, ensuring that the tides and the torment never stop. Reflection softens the image. Some relationships transform by tension. Some endurance comes from friction. Even in the heart of fire, there can be grace not in the blaze, but in the pattern it draws. Breathe in Io's heat, faint and far. Breathe out, and let the glow become warmth without pain. Europa looks peaceful, a white-blue marble etched with lines, like veins on glass. Beneath that calm, beneath ice tens of miles thick, lies an ocean larger than all of Earth's seas combined. It has never seen sunlight, never touched the sky, yet it moves slowly, restlessly, warmed by tides that knead the moon from within. Paradox glows. The coldest place hides warmth. Above, the ice freezes and cracks, releasing vapor plumes that stretch hundreds of miles high. Below, the water churns in eternal darkness, brushing the rocky floor, perhaps touching heat vents that release minerals and energy. There, in the black quiet, chemistry steers the same kind that once birthed life on Earth. Explanation drifts like current. Spectrometers aboard spacecraft detect salts and possible organic compounds on the surface, thrown up from the deep. Magnetic readings suggest a conductive ocean, proof of brine and motion. In the future, probes may dive beneath that ice, searching for lightless ecosystems, for creatures that know warmth without fire. Reflection breathes. Silence is not emptiness, it's preparation. Europa teaches that isolation can cradle possibility, that peace is not absence, but patience. Imagine floating there, hearing only water's slow pulse, feeling the faint gravity of Jupiter's heart overhead. Breathe in, cool as ice. Breathe out, steady as tide. Beneath your own calm, oceans move too. Ganymede is not merely a moon, it's a world, bigger than Mercury, wrapped in thin air and quiet magnetism. Beneath its crust of ice lies salt water, and beneath that, metal, a liquid core turning slowly, creating a magnetic field all its own. It is the only moon that shields itself from Jupiter's vast power, spinning in quiet defiance, while still keeping rhythm with the giant it orbits. Paradox resonate, dependence and independence coexisting. While other moons surrender to Jupiter's magnetosphere, Ganymede sings back, creating auroras that rock gently across its poles, twin blue curtains trembling in the dark. Those lights drift and sway as if listening to Jupiter's magnetic voice, answering softly, "I hear you." I am here, but I am also myself. Explanation deepens the light. Ganymede's surface tells a dual story: ancient, cratered regions from its earliest days, and younger grooves carved by tectonic motion, frozen in place like wrinkles of growth. Its ice shell may be layered, ocean upon ocean, like a cake of frozen seas. Between those layers, salts conduct electricity, sustaining the moon's quiet compass. Reflection smiles within you. Ganymede is proof that orbit doesn't mean submission. You can belong and still hold your own gravity. You can listen to larger forces and still hum your own melody beneath them. Breathe in, imagine a light that protects instead of blinds. Breathe out and let that field expand around your mind, soft, steady, sure. Far out, Callisto watches the oldest, the quiet one, untouched by storms, the last of Jupiter's great moons and the keeper of memory. Farther from the giant storms, where Jupiter's pull softens into patience, drifts Callisto quiet, cratered, untouched. Its face is a tapestry of impacts older than any known ocean. No volcanoes, no tectonics, no new scars, only the stillness of time stretched thin. Callisto is memory made visible, a relic from the dawn of the solar system, a place where the universe keeps its archives in dust and ice. Paradox rests gently on its frozen plains, stillness as testimony. While other moons remade themselves through fire or water, Callisto simply endured. It neither erupted nor drowned. It waited. And in that waiting, it preserved everything, the record of every strike, every silence. Seen from orbit, its surface resembles old parchment scorched by starlight, each crater a word, each valley a pause in an ancient story no one remembers writing. Explanation flows through data and reverence. Galileo and later Juno found Callisto's interior half rock, half ice, perhaps layered with a buried ocean deep below. Its thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide and oxygen drifts, like breath in sleep. No magnetism, no movement, yet it endures, steady against radiation that would erase lesser worlds. Its surface glows faintly under Jupiter's reflected light, as if whispering, "I remember when you were all still young." Reflection glides between your breaths. Not every life must change to have meaning. Some exist to remember, to remain, to remind others of beginnings. You too have your Callisto, your inner place, that does not rush or burn, that simply holds. Breathe in its calm. Breathe out the need for novelty. Sometimes, timelessness is the truest form of courage. Every few hours, something passes between Jupiter and its sun. A moon glides across its face, tracing a dark spot that drifts over the swirling clouds. From afar, it looks like a moving shadow. From within the planet's skies, it would be an eclipse so vast that entire storms fall dark beneath it. There are nights when multiple moons cast their silhouettes together, a slow choreography of orbit and light. Paradox lingers, worlds circling endlessly, yet never colliding. Jupiter's family is bound by gravity's discipline, their motions locked in resonances. Io orbits 4 times for every 2 of Europa and 1 of Ganymede. Each tug, each pull, keeps the others in rhythm, as if the entire system were breathing in patterns older than music. Explanation hums, like orbital mechanics turned lullaby. Observers from Earth have watched these transits for centuries, measuring timing to test gravity's laws. From Jupiter's upper atmosphere, sunlight dims, refracted through amber haze. Moons like Io or Europa appear as tiny black disks sliding over a canvas of storms, temporary absences that deepen the planet's living geometry. Reflection steadies the mind. Even shadows can be choreography. When something blocks your light, it might simply be alignment, a necessary crossing that keeps your orbit true. The universe doesn't fear darkness. It uses it to measure time. Breathe in the rhythm of these eclipses. Breathe out their symmetry. You, too, can move within your own orbit and still leave space for others to shine. Though space has no air for sound, Jupiter sings in frequencies your ears cannot hear. Its magnetic field crackles with bursts of radio waves, whistles, pops, and steady choruses that sweep through the dark like whale song through water. These are the planet's hidden languages, carried on charged particles streaming from poles to plasma. Paradox whispers, silence that speaks. The same field that traps radiation also composes harmony. When Io's orbit cuts through magnetic lines, electric currents surge between moon and planet, creating a luminous bridge of energy, a radio duet that fills the void. It is not chaos but communication, written in electromagnetic code. Explanation moves like static and rhythm. Instruments aboard Juno and ground antennas on Earth capture these signals. Some are the chromatic emissions triggered by Io's interaction. Others arise from auroral processes, modulated by Jupiter's rotation. Translated into sound, they pulse and shimmer, a cosmic heartbeat, too steady to belong to accident. Reflection listens deeper. The planet doesn't know it's singing, but it cannot help it. Its forces, wind, magnetism, heat, compose naturally. Perhaps we too broadcast without realizing, our thoughts and kindness radiating through invisible fields. The universe is not quiet. It is full of frequencies waiting to be heard by hearts that slow down enough to listen. Breathe in, tune to that hum. Breathe out, let it align your own pulse. Above, the auroras flicker in ultraviolet fire. Below, clouds drift and fold. Between them, the song continues, patient, precise, eternal. Even far from the sun, Jupiter glows, not with reflected light alone, but from within a slow, deep radiance that seeps through its clouds like warmth through cupped hands. The planet releases nearly twice as much energy as it receives, its heart still burning with the echo of formation. When the solar system was new, Jupiter gathered so much mass that gravity itself became a furnace. That first compression never truly ended. It only quieted, settling into the steady ember we see now. Paradox whispers gently, the coldest world still keeps warmth. Though the surface freezes in silence, the core burns in memory. Hydrogen becomes metal, pressure becomes heat, and heat becomes light that no one sees until it escapes through the clouds as infrared glow. From space, the planet is wrapped in this invisible warmth, like a pulse that never tires. Explanation unfolds like a heartbeat. As Jupiter's vast mass contracts under its own gravity, potential energy turns to heat, a process called Kelvin-Helmholtz contraction. The core may reach tens of thousands of degrees, even without fusion. It's not a star, but it dreamed once of being one. That dream lingers as a faint halo, a comfort against the dark between orbits. Reflection breathes in rhythm with the planet. Sometimes, the things that almost will leave a warmth that never leaves you. Jupiter teaches that you don't need to ignite to shine pressure. Patience and endurance can become light, too. Inhale, feel your own quiet heat. Exhale, let it spread through the calm, a memory of every beginning that made you. Most never notice them. Against Jupiter's brilliance, the rings are nearly invisible, faint veils of dust that shimmer only when backlit by the sun. They are not grand like Saturn's icy halos. They are subtle, fragile, made from the debris of shattered moons and grains of meteor dust captured by gravity's sigh. Yet they exist, delicate and eternal, encircling the planet in silence. Paradox floats among those particles, permanence made from ruin. Every fragment that once broke apart now becomes part of an orbit, joining a pattern it never chose but always follows. These rings are soft, echoes of violence turned to grace. Explanation drifts through shadow. Jupiter's main ring lies close to the equator, supplied by tiny moons, Adrastea, Metis, Amalthea, Thebe, whose surfaces are constantly struck by micrometeoroids. Each impact throws dust upward, which settles into orbit and slowly fades into invisibility. Under sunlight, these grains glow red and copper, forming thin arcs that stretch for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Reflection turns that dust to metaphor. Nothing is ever truly lost. The pieces that break away still circle the source, shimmering in loyalty long after the collision. You too leave behind fragments, memories, gestures, quiet moments, and they orbit you unseen, refracting light into others' skies. Breathe in, gather those gentle fragments. Breathe out, let them spin freely, glinting faintly behind you. Jupiter doesn't just rule its orbit, it protects the rest of us. Its gravity, vast and patient, catches comets and deflects asteroids, sweeping the space lanes clean like a cosmic shepherd. Without it, Earth's skies might still rain with fire. The giant's pull has saved the fragile from destruction countless times, though it never asks for thanks. It simply moves, as it always has, in service of balance. Paradox glows in that strength. What could destroy becomes protector. Jupiter's mass, so large it bends the sun itself slightly off-center, acts as both shield and sculptor. It redirects icy wanderers into harmless paths, and sometimes draws them in completely ending chaos, in a single bright fall through its atmosphere. When that happens, the planet's clouds flash with light, a silent act of guardianship visible across space. Explanation sings in orbits. Computer models show how Jupiter stabilizes the solar system's architecture. Its resonance with Saturn maintains harmony, keeping the inner planets safe from gravitational chaos. Its field of influence stretches past the asteroid belt, guiding Trojan asteroids that follow it like quiet companions, millions of rocks kept in check by its steady gravity. Reflection breathes gently. Power does not always roar. Sometimes it simply holds firm, unseen, protective. Jupiter's presence teaches that strength can be quiet, that guardianship can be graceful. You may never know what dangers have passed you by because something vast and kind deflected them in silence. Inhale, feel that safety. Exhale, rest in it. The universe keeps watch, even in its sleep. And as you drift in that calm, the planet turns slowly, endless and sure. Its rings gleam faintly. Its storms murmur like distant seers. Its moons glow and fade in rhythm. And somewhere, at the edge of thought, the giant whispers, "You are safe. Rest now." Deep within Jupiter, far below the amber belts and the hush of stormlight, the heart is not a hard jewel but a blur. Juno's gravity readings whisper that the core is dilute, heavy elements mingled with metallic hydrogen, spreading outward like cream in coffee. No single edge, no sudden boundary. Just depth turning into more depth, until center becomes a region rather than a point. Paradox glows softly, the biggest planet, and yet its core refuses to be sharp. The giant chooses blending over borders. In that twilight of pressure, another secret likely falls, droplets of helium separating from hydrogen and raining inward, silent beads of clarity sliding through a metallic sear. You cannot hear them, you cannot see them, but over ages, their descent releases heat, feeding the planet's inner glow, tinting the upper air with slightly less helium than expected, a signature of rain that never meets air. Explanation moves like slow weather. At certain pressures and temperatures, hydrogen and helium stop mixing. Helium gathers into droplets heavier than the surrounding fluid and sinks. This helium rain is gentler here than on Saturn, yet enough to matter, cooling some layers, warming others, nudging currents that rise like invisible tides. Meanwhile, the dilute core rock, ice and metals dispersed through metallic hydrogen records, a formation story written by collisions and long blending. An early epoch when Jupiter swallowed embryos of stone, and slowly folded them into its endless heat. Reflection settles in your chest. You don't need a hard center to be whole. Identity can be gradient, heart can be region. What falls within you, clarity, courage, grief, may descend not to disappear, but to feed a deeper warmth. Breathe in, feel the layers soften. Breathe out, let the quiet rain do its work. A self can be vast and still at peace. There was a week in 1994 when Jupiter's clouds wore constellations of ink. A comet Shoemaker Levy 9 had been torn into pearls by gravity, each fragment on a doomed path. One after another, they plunged into the planet's southern night, vanishing beneath cloud tops and detonating in silence. Hours later, the evidence rose like bruises, dark ovals, coal black against creams and cinnamon, scars big enough to swallow Earth's continents. Paradox softens the spectacle. Catastrophe turned into calm art. From Earth, telescopes watched the marks drift with the winds, ringed by pale waves like ripples from a stone dropped into a lake. The planet absorbed the blows with patient enormity. The scars lingered for months, then blurred, then melted back into anonymity stormlight and dust reclaiming their canvas. Explanation traces the arc. The comet, captured long before by Jupiter's gravity, slipped too near and was tidally shredded gravel made of ice. Its fragments struck at tens of kilometers per second, their energy blooming below view, lofting soot-like aerosols that painted the planet's visible skin. In infrared, the impacts flashed like embers. In data, they became lessons about chemistry, steered by violence, about winds revealed by the drift of debris, about a guardian that sometimes swallows danger so others don't have to. Reflection is a hand over the heart. Marks can be beautiful when they mean survival. The universe bruises and heals in public. We do the same in private. What has struck you and left a trace might also have protected you from something greater. Breathe in the memory of falling stars. Breathe out the knowledge that not every scar asks to be erased. Some simply want to fade in their own time. Jupiter spins like a lullaby on fast forward once every 110 hours. Daylight and darkness change places before a dream can finish its first paragraph. Clouds barely finish a gesture before night returns to underline it. And yet nothing feels rushed. The scale is so vast that speed becomes serenity. Paradox humps, the fastest rotation among the giants, creating the most unhurried moods. That spin flattens the planet at the poles, widening the equator an elegant bow to momentum. It also combs the atmosphere into belts and zones, carving dothans of jet streams that loop the globe. But how do you time a day on a world with no surface to mark it? You listen to what doesn't drift the magnetism. Jupiter's system to 3 clock is the rotation of its magnetic field, measured in radio pulses that never lose their beat, even when clouds dough. Explanation turns like gears. Cloud tops define System I and System II, are spinning at different paces in equatorial and higher latitudes. The deep interior, anchored by metallic hydrogen, rotates as a truer whole, and its magnetic lighthouse sweeps space every 9 hours, 55 minutes. Spacecraft hear the beacon as rising whistles and steady throb, a planetary metronome. Within that rhythm, storms are born, merge, fade, convective towers rise and fall, lightning plays its quick measures while the baseline never changes. Reflection lowers the lights. You too can keep more than one kind of time, the visible, which shifts with weather, and the invisible, which doesn't. Let your outer layers be clouds allowed to wander. Let your inner field hold steady. Breathe into your private tempo. Breathe out to the world's. Fast on the outside, calm at the core. This is how giants sleep while spinning. At dusk on Jupiter, the horizon is not a line but a blur. Light doesn't end, it dissolves. As the sun slips behind the curve of the giant, its last rays scatter through 100 miles of haze, turning from gold to lavender to pale blue before fading into black. Shadows stretch over clouds that will never know stillness. The planet turns quickly, and night sweeps across its face like ink poured on silk. Paradox breathes through that motion, a day that ends every 5 hours yet never feels hurried. The speed that would tear apart a lesser world only deepens Jupiter's calm. The atmosphere flows so smoothly that dusk becomes a lullaby bands, softening, lightning flickering like slow heartbeats under the dark. Explanation hums through data. Twilight occurs differently here because there is no solid surface to break the light. Particles high above reflect and refract, coloring the belts before darkness truly comes. Huna's cameras have caught the transition bands that dim from ochre to violet as night curls around the curve. The result is not sunset, but transformation. Reflection drifts with the turning. Endings, too, can be gentle. You don't have to fall into night, you can fade into it, keeping color for a while before surrendering it to quiet. Breathe in the long swirl of dusk. Breathe out the relief that comes with knowing you are allowed to rest. When darkness finally covers the giant, light returns but from within. Flashes burst below the clouds, too bright for thunder, too brief for repetition. They illuminate the underbellies of storms, painting the clouds from inside out. Each bolt is a vertical river of plasma, 10 times stronger than any lightning on Earth. Stitched into silence by the absence of air, Paradox glows. Silence filled with noise. Lightning without sound, storms without surface. The energy is immense, but distance softens it into beauty. Pearls of light drifting upward through the murk. From space, they look like heartbeat monitors tracing the planet's breath. Explanation hums with calm. The upper layers of Jupiter's atmosphere, mostly hydrogen, helium, and water vapor, create conditions for charge separation. Convection drives ice and ammonia crystals into collisions, generating static. Electric fields build until breakdown occurs, releasing light rather than thunder. Each bolt lights a column of gas that lasts only milliseconds, yet the planet hosts thousands of them at once, blinking across its night side like fireflies on an endless seer. Reflection falls gently over you. Illumination does not need to speak. Some energies announce themselves in silence. So do you. The quiet bursts within the small realizations. The sudden warmth, the brief courage, are your own lightning. Breathe in their glow. Breathe out the darkness they reveal, and see that it is not empty. It is waiting to shine again. Far below the storms lies a sea without waves, an ocean that never ends. The further you descend, the heavier the air becomes, hydrogen pressed into liquid by sheer weight. There is no boundary, no splash when gas becomes fluid. It simply thickens like mist condensing into thought. Down here, sunlight cannot reach, yet everything glows faintly from heat and compression. Paradox turns itself over, an atmosphere that becomes its own ocean. The same molecules that drift freely above now swim like molten glass, dense enough to flow, but too light to be called rock. It is the place between definitions, neither sky nor seer, a silence that supports storms. Explanation descends carefully. At pressures of millions of atmospheres, hydrogen molecules break apart, forming metallic hydrogen that conducts electricity. Currents within this layer create the magnetic field that stretches across space. Sound travels faster than bullets, and gravity squeezes energy into every movement. There is no flaw, only deepening density, until matter itself begins to shimmer with potential. Reflection rests at that depth. Perhaps peace is like this, a state between states, not solid, not air, simply being. You do not need to know where the boundary is between one form of yourself and another. You are allowed to flow. Inhale softly, sink into that ocean. Exhale, let the weight above you become warmth, not pressure. The planet holds its storms in balance because its heart knows how to yield. And somewhere beyond this liquid sky, the great red storm keeps turning. The auroras keep flickering, and time itself keeps breathing. And as the stars continue their slow, endless dance, you can let your thoughts drift with them, fading gently into the quiet of sleep. High above Jupiter's amber bands, the air turns pale and crystalline. Here, where sunlight thins and warmth forgets its way, ammonia vapor begins to gather molecule by patient molecule around flecks of dust and ice. Tiny seeds become flakes, flakes become veils, veils become whole cloud decks that drift like continents of frost. If you could pass a hand through them, it would meet no edge, only coolness growing softer, like breath on glass. Paradox settles gently, snow that never touches ground, storms without soil. In this heaven of gases, there is no down that ends in earth, only deeper cloud and deeper hush. Ammonia snow forms in the high, cold layers, while water clouds brew far below. Between them, a middle kingdom of ammonium hydrosulfide, sunset-tinted, cinnamon-scented in the imagination, adds color to the belts. Flakes rise and fall on convective elevators, subliming, refreezing, becoming weather that paints the planet in creams and rusts. Explanation floats like the crystals themselves. As air rises in zones, it cools and condenses. Ammonia nucleates on aerosols, building dendrites and pellets that drift downward until warmer layers erase their shape. Where belts descend, the air dries and clears, letting us peer into deeper browns. At the shearing borders, flakes and droplets collide, sharing charge, stoking the great batteries that later discharge as lightning. Mush balls grow in vigorous towers, ammonia and water slush balls, carrying volatile material to lower levels, then returning it aloft when new updrafts form. A planet self-stirs with snow that seldom survives the fall. Reflection rests in your chest, like a cool hand. Not every descent must end in landing. Some journeys are transformations solid to vapor, thought to silence, worry to rest. If your mind is a cloud deck tonight, let the flakes form and fall and vanish, over and over, until the pattern itself becomes peace. Inhale the high, cold purity. Exhale the soft return to formlessness. South of the great red spot, a younger sibling circles smaller, swifter, tinted rose. We call it oval BA, the little red spot, but the name hides a story of patience. Decades ago, 3 white oval storms, already old in human terms, edged closer, met at their margins, and, instead of tearing each other apart, entwined. The merger became one, spinning stronger, climbing higher, blushing red as sunlight and chemistry worked their slow art upon its crown. Paradox warms the air, collision fostering coherence, agitation becoming grace. On Jupiter, where the canvas is vast, storms can live long enough to evolve. As oval BA tightened its gyre, it began to resemble its elder, an anticyclone, with a clear, quiet heart and fierce edges. Winds near its rim race faster than hurricanes. Yet the center holds a hush you could sink into, a still eye inside motion. Explanation traces the choreography. Anticyclones in the southern hemisphere spin counterclockwise, drawing down dry air that clears the view. When multiple high-pressure ovals align, conservation of vorticity spins stubborn wish to persist, steers them into union. The new vortex grows vertically, lifting chromophores, reddening molecules, into harsher sunlight, altering color from chalk white to coral. Instruments have watched it wax and wane, tempted by the great red spot's gravity, sometimes flanking it in a tandem drift, 2 calm hearts sharing a runaway sky. Reflection turns the merger into mercy. Sometimes your scattered efforts want to be one. 3 worries can become a single, gentler motion. 3 voices, 1 kinder song. Let your mind's small storms align tonight. Let them merge into a slower wheel whose center is quiet. Breathe in, gather. breathe out, become one. Ahead of Jupiter in its solar path, and far behind it as well, two great swarms drift at ease, asteroids balanced at the planet's Lagrange points, Quattro and Cinco. We call them the Trojans after myths of camps before a walled city, one Greek, one Trojan. Yet their true allegiance is to balance itself. Each stone is small, dark, ancient. Together, they are a migration that never lands, a flock that circles the sun forever, in Jupiter's wake and vanguard. Paradox glides in their calm, chaos corralled by geometry. The gravitational pulls of sun and giant, plus the inertia of orbit, weave stable pockets where objects can idle for eons. Some Trojans are red as dried wine, others grey as ash. Many likely harbour primitive ices beneath carbon-rich skins, a museum of early solar chemistry travelling in daylight. They do not crash inward, they keep the beat, spacing themselves in loose, courteous order. Explanation moves with celestial manners. At Lagrange points, the combined gravitational potential forms gentle bowls, drift too far and you slide back, drift close and you lounge. Resonances with the giant's year tune the swarm's long-term sway. The upcoming probes that will visit curious bees among patient stones will read their spectra, ages and shapes, comparing these time capsules to comets and outer belt kin. What formed where? What lingered and why? The answers will be soft-spoken, fossil light from the system's first morning. Reflection eases into orbit. Your life has Lagrange points, two places where effort lightens, where forces cancel, where you can float without falling. Perhaps tonight is one of those bowls, a stable minimum cradling you between what pulls and what pushes. Inhale, feel the cradle take your weight. Exhale, let the flock escort you through the dark, unhurried, unafraid. Jupiter's pull begins far before you reach its face, even millions of miles away. Gravity starts its quiet persuasion, drawing comets off course, bending the flight of dust, altering the rhythm of passing stars. It's a vast, invisible sculpture, a well-carved not in space, but in potential. And inside it, everything slows. Paradox hums. What seems like captivity is often balance. The same force that traps wandering bodies also stabilizes the solar system, fixing orbits in long-term grace. Jupiter's gravity well is so deep that escaping it would take more energy than leaving the sun's embrace from Earth's orbit. Yet, within that depth, moons find safety, rings find rhythm, even asteroids find peace. Explanation bends softly with math. Gravity's strength is mass over distance squared, a law of closeness, of intimacy. For Jupiter, that intimacy extends far. Its sphere of influence stretches nearly halfway to Saturn. Spacecraft entering this domain feel the tug long before encounter, their trajectories curling gently, their speeds reshaped by a planet they cannot see. For comets and debris, this well is both sanctuary and sentence. Fall too near, and you melting cloud. Skirt the rim, and you are given a new path, forever altered. Reflection folds around the metaphor. Every heart has a gravity well, fields of attention that pull some things close, send others away. You can't stop the pull. You can only shape what orbits within. Inhale the awareness of your own influence. Exhale the freedom to let go of what spirals too near. Jupiter teaches that even the deepest wells can hold serenity. At Jupiter's poles, space and storm meet in a quiet riot of light. The auroras there are the largest in the solar system, rings of ultraviolet fire hundreds of times brighter than Earth's northern lights. They never fade completely. Even in day, they whisper beneath the haze, glowing with the heartbeat of magnetism. Paradox shimmers, constant motion that feels eternal stillness. The light is born of violence, electrons and ions spiraling along magnetic field lines, smashing into hydrogen atoms that respond not with sound, but with radiance. The result is a halo that never ends, shaped by currents flowing between the planet and its moons, especially fiery Io. Explanation unfolds in wavelengths. Ultraviolet and infrared instruments aboard. UNO reveal ovals that pulse and ripple, sometimes linked directly to solar wind, sometimes independent, self-driven by Jupiter's rotation. Io's plasma, Taurus injects sulfur and oxygen, feeding the auroral engines. As electrons fall toward the poles, they trace spirals of energy that convert magnetism into color, turning physics into art. Reflection calms the current. Even chaos seeks beauty. Your own storms, thoughts colliding, emotions rising, can also resolve into light when given the right field to move through. Breathe in the charge, the tension of the day. Breathe out the color it can become. You are your own aurora, born of pressure, shaped by magnetism, quiet in brilliance. Billions of years ago, when the solar system was still smoke and fire, Jupiter tried to become something more. It gathered mass, pulling gas and dust until it reached a threshold, but not enough. To ignite hydrogen into fusion, a world must weigh 80 times what Jupiter does. It fell short, and so it glows without burning, warms without flame. Paradox lingers, failure that becomes grace. Because Jupiter never became a star, the inner world's Earth, among them, survived. The giant's gravity kept debris away. Its magnetic fields absorbed the chaos of the young sun's winds. What could have been a second sun, instead, became a shield, a soft giant watching over worlds that would one day dream of looking back. Explanation balances light and silence. Jupiter still emits warmth from its slow contraction, a memory of starhood that never quite went out. Its atmosphere bears traces of the nebula's earliest chemistry: ammonia, methane, water, and noble gases, ingredients of creation suspended in endless cloud. It did not fail to ignite, it succeeded in enduring. Reflection drifts through that thought. What you do not become can also define what survives around you. Not every dream must end in flame. Some end in light, softer, longer, kinder. Jupiter reminds you that restraint can be its own kind of luminosity. Inhale, feel your own warmth, steady, sufficient. Exhale, let go of the need to burn brighter than you already do. And as the planet turns again, slow and endless, its storms resume their patient dance. Moons rise, clouds fold, auroras shimmer. The night grows quieter still, and somewhere within that vastness, the sleepy scientist whispers, all this motion, all this fire, all this gravity, and still it rests. And as the stars continue their slow, endless dance, you can let your thoughts drift with them, fading gently into the quiet of sleep. Amalthea drifts close to Jupiter's blinding body, so near that half her sky is nothing but stormlight. She's small, barely 50 kilometers wide and irregular, shaped more like a scarlet stone than a sphere. Her surface glows faintly red, tinted by sulfur dust from Io's eruptions. From above, she resembles a floating ember caught in Jupiter's breath, an ember that refuses to fade. Paradox gleams, a fragile moon orbiting inside a furnace, yet unbroken. Amalthea's temperature plunges in shadow, rises again under fierce sunlight swings, so sharp that metal could crack, ice could boil. And yet she endures, tracing her path just beyond the faint rings, steady, unafraid. The planet's gravity pulls her constantly, flexing her crust. Heat builds, radiates, disappears again. She is the quiet endurance that glows instead of shouting. Explanation moves with data. Discovered in 1890, those by Edward Barnard, Amalthea was the last moon found by direct observation before spacecraft took over the sky. Her density is low, suggesting she's a porous pile of icy rubble rather than a single stone, perhaps a captured wanderer, a remnant from an older system. When Voyager passed by, it found her covered in deep craters, ridges, and mysterious bright patches that might be frost. Reflection whispers, being small does not mean being unseen. Even the tiniest worlds reflect light. Even those closest to giants leave traces on their storms. You, too, orbit powers larger than yourself, expectations, memories, time, but you still glow. The heat may test you, the pull may shape you, but your color, your motion, your persistence, they are your defiance. Inhale Jupiter's brightness. Exhale your own steady ember. Thebe lives farther out than Amalthea, near the edge of Jupiter's main ring. She's dim, rough, unassuming, yet her orbit weaves part of the planet's hidden beauty. When sunlight catches her dust, it becomes the faint outer glow of the rings, a halo so thin it vanishes head-on. Thebe doesn't shine by herself. She lends her body to light's persistence. Paradox softens her outline, a moon defined not by presence, but by trace. Thebe is constantly bombarded by micrometeoroids. Each impact releases particles that join the ring. She erodes to become art. The violence that chips away her skin makes the space around her luminous. There is a quiet generosity in this kind of loss. Explanation glides through orbit. Thebe's path is locked to Jupiter's rotation, tidally bound so that one side always faces the planet. Her far hemisphere sees stars, her near one sees endless cloud. She measures her days, not in hours, but in tides of radiation, darkness flaring into brightness as she crosses Jupiter's magnetosphere. Instruments on the Galileo spacecraft detected her surface baked and scarred by energetic particles. Yet she keeps circling, patient, faintly red, her dust feeding the twilight arcs that shimmer like whispers. The reflection steadies the air. Sometimes endurance is not about keeping everything, but about letting small pieces drift away to make something larger. You can shed brightness and still remain whole. You can live in shadow and still be the reason someone sees light. Breathe in the gentleness of that idea. Breathe out the need to prove your shine. Himalaya orbits so far from Jupiter that the planet no longer dominates her sky. From her horizon, the giant glows not as a looming world, but as a brilliant disk, still immense, but softened by distance. She moves slowly, gracefully, through a realm where the pull of Jupiter begins to blur into the sun's. Her orbit is inclined, tilted, eccentric. She is a captured object, a former drifter who found a home at last. Paradox lingers, belonging through capture. Himalaya was likely once a wandering asteroid from the outer solar system. When Jupiter's gravity found her, it didn't destroy her, it redirected her forever. Now, she circles faithfully, carrying the story of what it means to be claimed without losing one's essence. Explanation flows through faint signals. Himalaya, about 170 kilometers wide, is the largest of Jupiter's outer irregular moons. Her color is neutral gray, her composition, a mix of water ice and silicate rock. Observations suggest a rough, primitive surface, unchanged for billions of years, a time capsule from the solar system's youth. Around her orbit drift a few companions, perhaps fragments of her own body torn long ago. Together they form a small family, faint and eternal, traveling as one through Jupiter's outer halo. The reflection breathes like wind at that distance. Sometimes distance itself is a kindness. From far enough away, even storms look like texture. Even chaos looks like calm. Himalaya teaches that detachment is not absence, it's perspective. You can love the center and still keep your horizon wide. Breathe in the vastness, breathe out the weight of nearness. Out there, in the cold where light grows thin, Jupiter's pull still hums a sound too deep for ears, too soft for silence. The moons, the dust, the faint rings, all turn together in a choreography that has no end, only motion. There is a place where Jupiter's voice fades, a soft frontier, where the giant's pull loosens, and the sun's gravity takes the lead again. It's not a wall, not a sudden end, but a zone of negotiation, a conversation stretched across millions of miles. Here, the planet's magnetosphere thins into the solar wind, its plasma tail fading like smoke into sunlight. The particles that once circled obediently begin to drift, their orbits bending slowly toward freedom. Paradox hums. Even power must learn to release. Jupiter, the master of pull, the keeper of moons, cannot hold everything. Its field extends farther than imagination, yet still the universe is wider. At this border, forces balance so delicately that dust and stone can float for ages, caught between yes and no, falling toward neither. Explanation breathes through numbers. The hill sphere, the measure of Jupiter's dominion, spans nearly 50 million kilometers. Within it, the planet can claim moons. Beyond it, the sun whispers louder. But even outside that mathematical line, the giant's influence lingers. Its gravity sculpts the paths of comets, passing hundreds of millions of kilometers away, reshaping their destinies in silence. Its magnetotail stretches past Saturn's orbit, a faint electrical umbilical cord between worlds. To reflection widens the thought. Everything that holds must also let go. The measure of a being, or a planet, is not how long it can keep, but how gracefully it can release. Your own boundaries shift too. Sometimes your pull is strong, sometimes it softens. Both are necessary. Inhale the vastness of letting go. Exhale the relief of no longer grasping. Even Jupiter, mighty and endless, yields to the light. At two quiet points along Jupiter's orbit, 60 degrees ahead and 60 degrees behind, float two enormous clusters of asteroids, the Trojan camps, known as the Greeks and the Trojans. They are not moons, not fragments of the planet, but fellow travelers' bodies held in perfect tension between Jupiter and the Sun. Here, gravity finds its equilibrium, and stillness takes the form of motion. Paradox glows softly. They move by standing still. Each Trojan circles the Sun exactly as Jupiter does, maintaining its distance, forever locked in companionship, but never collision. To drift too close to the giant would mean capture or ruin. To drift too far would mean losing resonance. Instead, they stay poised, hundreds of thousands of them spreading across regions larger than planets, yet balanced so delicately that they almost hum. Explanation settles into the orbits. These Lagrange points, Quattro and El Cinco, are gravitational cradles. The Trojans have been there for billions of years, untouched except by light. Some are small as boulders, others tens of kilometers wide. Their surfaces are dark, their colors red with organic tholins, their hearts icy. They are fossils from the dawn of formation matter that never became moon or world, preserved in the geometry of calm. NASA's Lucy spacecraft now sails toward them, a messenger on a spiral route to meet the quietest crowd in the sky. Reflection softens the cosmic into the human. Balance is not absence of motion, it's motion in harmony. You don't always have to orbit alone. Some companions drift beside you, neither leading nor following, just keeping pace. Their presence is proof that equilibrium is possible, even in chaos. Breathe in that thought. Breathe out the loneliness it replaces. As we drift outward, Jupiter grows smaller, paler, but never truly disappears. Its storms blur into soft bands. Its auroras fade to thin blue halos. The great red spot becomes just a rose-collared whisper on the limb. Yet, even now, its gravity tugs faintly at your course, a reminder that once you were close enough to feel its warmth through space. Paradox lingers in this distance. Leaving is also belonging. You can't unfeel a gravity once it's touched you. Every world that passes carries a trace of the last. In the silence between stars, Jupiter remains its echo, written into the paths of comets, its rhythm folded into the structure of the solar system. Explanation slows with the turning. The planet reflects sunlight, but it also emits its own infrared radiance born from the slow contraction of time and matter. That glow, though unseen by your eyes, still reaches you faintly, a warmth traveling billions of kilometers through cold vacuum. When telescopes look back, that light tells the story of endurance, a world that never burned, yet never dimmed. Reflection becomes the closing breath. Perhaps that's what peace is, neither explosion nor extinction, but glow, the quiet release of what you no longer need, the soft persistence of what you still love. Jupiter remains behind you now, steady as ever, a lantern for travelers who follow. You drift onward, slower, lighter, your orbit widening into sleep. Above, the stars continue their slow, endless dance, and as your thoughts drift with them, you fade gently into the quiet of rest. From far away, Jupiter looks like a cathedral of cream and honey. Up close, the palette multiplies: butterscotch, tea brown, rose, ash, and the quiet whites of new frost. These hues are not merely clouds, their chemistry singing in thin sunlight-minute chromophores, reddening agents birthed by light and lightning, steered through ammonia and sulfide mists until color becomes weather. Paradox glows softly, paint that is also motion. On Earth, pigments tend to sit still. On Jupiter, they travel lofted by rising zones, cleared by sinking belts, bleached by upwelling ammonia, deepened where air dries and warms. Sunlight breaks simple molecules into reactive fragments. Lightning finishes the recipe, forging long, carbon-rich chains that tan the cloud tops like slow-brewed tea. In some latitudes, ammonium hydrosulfide ripens the mix into cinnamon and rust. Elsewhere, fresh ammonia snows up from below and washes the canvas pale again. Explanation moves in layers. High above, thin haces absorb blue light and lend the upper clouds their warm tint. Mid-level decks, ammonia ice scatter gently, while deeper water cloud towers carry darker contaminants upward in convective plumes. Where the air descends, belts, the haze thins and browns show through. Where it rises, zones, brighter whites spread like quiet dawn. Instruments see the fingerprints, ultraviolet absorption by photochemical hazes, microwave windows mapping ammonia's feast and famine below. The result is a planet whose color is a verb, not a noun. Reflection rests like a warm hand. You, too, are painted by what moves through you: light, memory, weather. Some days bleach you gentle, others tan you bold. Neither is a verdict. Both are seasons. Breathe in the soft gold of acceptance. Breathe out whatever we no longer serves. Let your colors be as honest as wind. Watch the stripes for a while, and you'll notice something comforting. They keep time. Eastward, westward, eastward. Again, dozens of jet streams braided into a planet-wide loom. The surprise is not that they exist, it's how far they descend. These aren't surface breezes pasted on a tranquil core. They are deep rivers, burrowing thousands of kilometers, carrying momentum like buried cables of wind. Paradox hums, order without edges. On a world with no ground to scrape against, why would jets persist? Because rotation and heat conspire. Rising plumes export angular momentum. Sinking branches reclaim it. Coriolis bends each flow into lanes that refuse to blur. Down in the murk, density rises, but the pattern remains like a song that grows quieter without losing pitch. Explanation leans on gravity's stethoscope. By measuring tiny changes in Jupiter's gravity field during close passes, a spacecraft can hear the tugs of mass in motion. The data whisper that jets extend to depths of roughly 0.000 kilometers before fading, their sheer carving subtle asymmetries in the field. Microwave eyes add detail, mapping where ammonia rides those currents like dye in a river. What looks like stripes painted on cloud is really structure with roots, weather as architecture. Till reflection settles into rhythm, your outer motions are often anchored in quiet depths. You seldom see habits, values, patient choices braided over years. Let that comfort you tonight. You don't need to force the stripe to hold. The root already knows. Inhale to the count of 4, exhale to 6. Feel a jet of calm slide through you, deeper than worry can reach. High above the thunderheads, where the air thins into chilly clarity, Jupiter keeps a second calendar. Temperatures and winds in the equatorial stratosphere rise and fall in stacked, alternating bands, then swap places a few years later, as if the planet were turning a vast hourglass and letting momentum sift from one layer to the next. It is a breath you can't see, only feel in the way waves move and clouds reply. Paradox sooth is constancy made from reversal. While the belts and zones down below hold their lanes, the high air practices alternation, warm layers cooling, east winds yielding to west, then back again. Nothing panics. The flip is not a storm, it's a nod. Planetary waves climb from the weather below, deposit their push, then fade. The accumulated shove turns the wind until the scaffold resets. Explanation traces a quiet metronome. Infrared maps reveal temperature lobes sliding up and down the equator on a roughly 4-year cadence. Where air warms, it sinks and dries. Where it cools, it rises and moistens, subtle nudges that modulate cloud opacity and color beneath. The mechanism echoes Earth's own equatorial rhythm, the QBO, but runs on Jupiter's scale, with broader layers and calmer hands. No alarms, just a scheduled exhale. Reflection becomes simple practice. You, too, have cycles that don't ask permission, seasons of mind, that tilt from outward to inward, then back. Trust the flip. When the high air in you wants to change direction, let it. The lower stripes will carry on. The deep jets will keep their vow. Breathe in to welcome the new wind. Breathe out to release the old warmth. What returns is balance, not symmetry enough to sleep by. Behind Jupiter, the solar wind meets resistance and folds, stretched into a luminous tail that flows for hundreds of millions of kilometers, farther than the distance between Earth and the Sun. It's called the magnetotail, a vast plasma ribbon that hums with electricity and whispers through radio waves. Invisible, silent, but powerful enough to sculpt auroras and shift cosmic dust, it trails behind the planet like a comet made of light and magnetism. Paradox shines quietly, a tail that isn't matter but motion. It glows only in invisible frequencies, its beauty felt more than seen. The magnetotail drifts outward into the dark, tethering Jupiter to the solar wind, creating storms where no atmosphere exists. Sometimes, charged particles escape along it, tiny pieces of Jupiter's own breath, wandering into the far solar system, carrying the planet's song to places that will never see its face. Explanation ripples through instruments. Spacecraft crossing this tail detect waves of energy, sudden flips in direction, and bursts of plasma as magnetic field lines reconnect. When these invisible ropes snap and realign, they release jets of charged particles that shoot toward the poles, feeding the auroras in flashes of ultraviolet flame. It is magnetism behaving like weather storms of geometry, gusts of charged grace. Reflection rests in that image. You too have invisible tails, energies that stream behind you, shaped by what you've moved through. Not all remnants are burdens. Some are light you've left behind. The paths you no longer walk still hum with your trace. Inhale the awareness of your reach. Exhale the weight of what no longer needs following. Even unseen, your wake can be luminous. If the sun could dream, Jupiter would be one of its oldest memories. A reflection moving through its own light, patient, pale, never gone. Sunlight travels 43 minutes to reach the giant, touches its clouds, then takes another 43 to return to our eyes, each photon completing a story nearly an hour long. What we see of Jupiter is not the present, but the past still shining. Paradox glows. Every glimpse is history, yet feels immediate. The planet we watch through telescopes tonight has already turned slightly by the time the image arrives. Its lightning has already flickered out. Its storms have shifted. The glow is a postcard from 43 minutes ago, crossing billions of kilometers of quiet. Explanation softens the distance. Light scatters differently across Jupiter's upper clouds. Shorter blue wavelengths, absorbed by chromophores, longer reds and yellows reflected back. Each "we" carries energy from a different depth, letting scientists read altitude by color. In infrared, the picture reverses. Darker zones become bright with heat, showing us the planet's hidden warmth. Every image is a map of time, as much as of space. Reflection folds the science into solace, the light that leaves you your kindness. Your attention travels farther than you'll ever know. Some of it will take minutes to be seen, some will take years, but it endures. Every quiet act you make in darkness can return to someone as radiance. Inhale, imagine your own orbit of light. Exhale, let it drift. Even Jupiter, so far and vast, lives by reflected warmth. Halfway between Jupiter and Saturn, space thickens with dust, tiny relics of collisions, comet trails, and forgotten worlds. It is a place where gravity balances like breath. Here, the sun's pull and Jupiter's waning influence share a handshake, passing travelers from one domain to the next. You could call it a frontier, but it feels more like a sire place between chapters. Paradox floats in silence, a gap that holds connection. Nothing lives here, yet everything passes through. Asteroids wander in slow arcs. Fragments of comets pause, warmed by distant light, and radio signals from our probes drift lazily past, carrying data across cold time. It's the solar system's intermission, an ocean between continents of motion. Explanation rests in numbers. This stretch, roughly 600 million kilometers wide, contains resonance regions where small bodies dance between Jupiter's and Saturn's gravity, switching allegiance in loops that can last millions of years. Some are captured temporarily, some forever lost, all part of the delicate tide of the outer planets. The sun's light here is dim enough to resemble perpetual sunset, the temperature calm enough for frost to outlive stone. The reflection moves through you like low wind. Between effort and rest, there is always a bridge. Between what you've done and what awaits, there is always this pause. Jupiter has let you go. Saturn is not yet close enough to hold you. Float here for a moment. You don't need to rush toward the next orbit. Inhale the quiet. Exhale the need to arrive. Exhale the need to arrive. The space between giants was made for breathing. And far ahead, faint but steady, Saturn's rings begin to catch the sun. They glimmer like whispers calling you onward, toward another slow, endless dance. Between Saturn's rings move small companions, shepherd moons, silent gardeners tending their paths. Each moon keeps a lane clean, a border neat. Some, like Prometheus and Pandora, patrol the delicate F-ring, tugging particles inward and outward in rhythmic embrace. As they pass, waves ripple through the ring like breath across silk. Nothing crashes, everything adjusts. Paradox glows softly, boundaries preserved by motion. The moons are not walls, they are dancers keeping distance by moving. Their gravity shapes braids, gaps, and spirals, proof that order can come from touch, not control. The F-ring itself is a living sketch, redrawn each orbit, its threads torn and rewoven like lace catching wind. Explanation drifts through orbit. Prometheus, shaped like a potato, sweeps closest to the ring. Every 14 hours it dives near, pulling strands outward in temporary streamers that relax back once it departs. Pandora follows, smoothing the edges. Inside, Daphne sculpts the Keeler Gap, raising vertical waves taller than mountains. These disturbances travel for hundreds of kilometers, yet all remain within harmony resonance, replacing chaos. Reflection finds meaning. You don't need to stop the world to shape it. Gentle, repeated guidance can carve beauty where force cannot. Every kindness, every small correction ripples through a larger system. Inhale the rhythm of patience. Exhale the urge to grasp. Like the shepherd moons, you can keep balance simply by keeping time. If you could stand on Titan, sunlight would look like honey filtered through smoke. The air would taste faintly of propane and frost. Around you, dunes stretch for hundreds of miles, carved not by sand but by frozen organic dust. Lakes lie quiet under orange skies, filled not with water, but liquid methane and ethane, cold as patience, reflective as memory. Paradox breathers, the coldest world with the warmest resemblance to home. Titan is the only moon with a thick atmosphere, its nitrogen-rich blanket dense enough to sculpt weather. There is wind, rain, rivers, seasons, yet every element has traded places. Ice acts as rock, methane as water, organic haze as cloud. What's alien is also familiar, just translated into another dialect of chemistry. Explanation deepens Hentley. Cassini's radar mapped seas like Kraken Mare and Ligaea Mare, vast enough to drown continents. The methane rain cycles upward, condensing, falling, running, and evaporating. Again, an alien hydrology under a double sun. Sol above, Saturn below, glowing in reflection. Beneath the icy crust, scientists suspect another ocean liquid water mixed with ammonia, a hidden echo of potential life. Reflection settles. Titan reminds us that life's pattern is not fragile, it adapts. Warmth is optional, structure is eternal. You too can translate. You can change your medium and still keep your rhythm. Breathe in the haze of possibility. Breathe out the faith that even in the coldest places, rivers still find a way to flow. Enceladus is a world of white silence, no bigger than Arizona, yet alive with motion. From fractures near its south pole called tiger stripes, plumes of water vapor jet into space, glittering in sunlight before falling back as snow. Beneath that ice lies a global ocean, salty and warm, stirred by tides that Saturn's gravity kneads like dough. It is one of the most hopeful places in the solar system, an ocean sealed under crystal sky. Paradox glimmers, frozen surface, living depth. From orbit, Enceladus looks asleep. Up close, it exhales. Cassini flew through those geysers and tasted their chemistry: water, salts, carbon dioxide, and traces of organic molecules. Not proof of life, but a whisper that it might hum somewhere below, near hydrothermal vents on a seafloor lit by chemical fire. Explanation cools to detail. The plumes emerge where ice plates pull apart slightly, allowing subsurface water to flash into vapor. The pressure is modest, the rhythm steady, the jets so fine they feed Saturn's faint, ring snow made into architecture. Each orbit, Enceladus gives a little of itself to space, replenishing beauty with loss. To reflection becomes tenderness. Sometimes you don't need to show everything. A single exhale is enough to change the air. The geysers of your effort, the words you release, the warmth you share might circle farther than you think. Inhale patience, exhale generosity. Even a small moon can fill a ring with light. Tiny Mimas circles closest among Saturn's inner moons, a world so small and cold it could almost be mistaken for a drifting rock, except for the one mark that defines its face. Herschel crater, a wound so vast it spans a third of the moon's diameter. From afar, it looks like an eye half closed in thought, watching over the rings with calm vigilance. The blow that created it should have shattered Mimas, yet it endured. The cracks froze, the silence healed. Paradox breathes in stillness, fragility that outlived destruction. The crater's walls rise like pale cliffs, and its center peak stands taller than Mount Everest. Sunlight slides across it slowly, filling one half of the moon with glow while the other remains ink dark. Each orbit brings extremes frozen sunlight on one side, shadow colder than memory on the other. Explanation unfolds in the rhythm of numbers. Mimas is about 400 kilometers across, made almost entirely of ice. Its orbit lies just beyond the rings, locked in resonance with Tethys, so that it keeps the same face towards Saturn forever. Tidal forces flex its interior slightly, and that faint kneading may warm it just enough to keep fractures from deepening. Its gravity sculpts the outer edge of the B ring, maintaining boundaries without even knowing it. Reflection lingers. Scars can be maps, not memories of failure. Herschel crater is not ruin. It is record a frozen echo of survival. You too carry marks that tell stories of endurance. Breathe in the cold clarity of acceptance. Breathe out the warmth of self-forgiveness. Like Mimas, you are quieter than your impact, steadier than your scars. If light could take shape, it might look like Tethys. She gleams brighter than fresh frost, reflecting nearly all the sunlight that touches her surface. From above, she is serene pearl turning in the dark, unblemished but not empty. Faint lines cross her face like fine hairline cracks, each one a frozen memory of stress and settling of slow motion beneath silence. Paradox glows softly. Beauty as balance, fragility as strength. Despite her radiance, Tethys bears one of the solar system's grandest scars, Ithaca Chasma, a canyon dose, 0 kilometers long, that wraps 3/4 of her circumference. It may have formed as her interior froze and expanded, splitting the crust like glass under cold. Yet, even that wound adds to her symmetry, a graceful seam that keeps the whole intact. Explanation drifts through orbit. Tethys measures about 0 kilometers wide and is composed mostly of water ice, nearly pure. Her density barely surpasses that of frozen rivers. Locked tidally to Saturn, she moves in quiet partnership with her smaller companions, Telesto and Calypso, which share her orbit like twin lanterns, one ahead, one behind. Together, they glide through sunlight, like the pause between breaths. Reflection cools to clarity. Wholeness doesn't mean uncracked. It means carrying light across your own fault lines until they shimmer. Tethys teaches that brilliance is not polish, it's persistence. Inhale the white calm of her surface. Exhale the small storms beneath. Somewhere in your stillness, there is reflection waiting to rise. Diona drifts like a dream half-remembered white, on one side, grey on the other, split not by chance but by history. Her leading hemisphere, always facing forward in orbit, wears a mantle of darker dust, swept up from Saturn's faint rings. Her trailing side stays clean, renewed by the slow fall of icy particles. She turns like a thought between shadow and renewal. Paradox floats, one face aging, one forever new. This moon of opposites orbits in quiet rhythm with Enceladus, locked in resonance so precise, it has shaped both their tides and fractures. The same pull that stirs Enceladus's geysers may once have warmed Dione's depths, and some evidence suggests that she, too, might hide an ancient ocean beneath her crust, a frozen heart that once beat with water. Explanation hums Kentley. Cassini's instruments found thin wisps of oxygen near Dione, perhaps released as sunlight split surface ice. Long ridges and bright streaks mark her plains, signs of tectonic tension and ancient resurfacing. Craters overlap in slow time, layered like old memories retold in quieter tones. Every detail speaks of endurance, of cycles that smooth chaos into grace. Reflection softens. You don't have to erase your shadows. You can orbit with them. Let half your mind rest in memory, half in becoming. Like Dione, you can wear both without contradiction, dark and light, as halves of the same calm sphere. Inhale the depth of shadow, exhale the patience of renewal. Balance isn't symmetry, it's acceptance. Rhea moves through Saturn's light like a memory of snowfall. Soft, quiet, persistent. She is the second largest moon of Saturn, yet she never demands attention. Her orbit is wide and even, her face pale and calm. At first glance, she seems almost empty, just ice and crater, but look longer, and she becomes something else, serenity carved by time. Paradox glows gently, stillness that never stops moving. Rhea circles Saturn every 4.5 days, her rotation perfectly matched to her orbit, showing the same face forever. The surface looks inert, but sunlight here is slow magic. Over eons, it turns water ice into different shades of brightness. One side pearl white, the other powdered grey. Explanation flows like a whisper. Rhea's surface is ancient, older than many planets' continents. Cassini found thin traces of oxygen and carbon dioxide drifting above her, an atmosphere so faint it is more dream than air. Her gravity gathers a faint disk of dust, possibly her own exhalation, a ghost ring around a moon that itself orbits a planet of rings. Beneath the crust, a frozen ocean might still sleep, or perhaps only ice compressed into strength, waiting for another age to soften again. Reflection, exhales. Rhea reminds us that age is not depletion, it's refinement. Every impact, every freeze, has only polished her calm. There's a holiness to such endurance. She doesn't shine because she's untouched, but because she has survived touch. Breathe in her patience. Breathe out your haste. If Rhea can keep orbit after 4 billion winters, you can rest through this night. Iapetus's contradiction made beautiful. One half gleams bright as ivory, the other swallows light completely, dark as burnt sugar. Where the two meet, the line is abrupt, a horizon across a single body, a night and day that never trade places. As the moon turns, it reveals both halves in alternation, like a slow blink from a creature that dreams in opposites. Paradox shines. One world, two truths. The dark side, Cassini Reggio, is coated with carbon-rich dust, likely from distant Phoebe or ancient impacts. The bright hemisphere, kept clean by frost, sublimating and redepositing, reflects sunlight so fiercely it makes the darkness look deeper still. This alchemy of contrast defines Iapetus's orbit and even shapes its shape. The moon is slightly squashed, its equator girdled by a ridge of mountains, so tall they almost scrape the idea of possibility. Explanation weaves gently. Cassini's close flybys showed that the ridge might be the remnant of an earlier spin, or even the remains of a ring that once hugged the moon and fell inward. Its brightness, its darkness, its bulge, all remnants of beginnings it never erased. Iapetus sits far from Saturn, on an orbit tilted high above the ring plane, as if to watch from the quiet balcony of the system. Reflection deepens. Contrast is not conflict, it's definition. Your light needs your shadow to be seen. Iapetus teaches that duality is harmony, slowed down enough to notice. Breathe in the shimmer of difference. Breathe out the wish to be uniform. Every contradiction inside you can find its own orbit. There is no wall at the edge of Saturn's rings, only thinning. Ice particles grow farther apart. Sunlight begins to pass through instead of scattering, and brightness fades into transparency until there is nothing left but the planet's shadow. It is an ending that pretends to be air. Paradox breathes, an edge made of absence. The rings, though vast and bright, are only a few dozen meters thick, fragile as frost. Each particle follows the laws of balance, orbiting for ages before collisions grind it finer and radiation darkens it into dusk. Slowly, over millions of years, the rings will drizzle inward, raining into Saturn's atmosphere like silent snow. Even endings here move gracefully. Explanation unfolds. Gravity and resonance shape this fade-out. The outermost ring, E, fed by Enceladus's geysers, extends beyond where sight expects, a gossamer cloud that merges with interplanetary dust. Cassini, during its final descent, flew through these regions, tasting the rain of ring particles falling into Saturn, a farewell of ice. The data said what the image could not. Everything exquisite dissolves eventually, but its dissolution writes new patterns. Reflection becomes sleep itself. Endings are not failures. They're transitions into quieter orbits. Like the rings, your thoughts can thin, tonight dense at first, then loose, then gone. Each one drifts inward until it becomes warmth, then hush. You don't need to hold them. The planet has shown the way. Beauty doesn't cling. It circles, releases, returns. And as Saturn turns once more, its rings catch the low light of a distant sun, scattering it into gold mist. Moons shimmer faintly. The hexagon at the pole spins with silent geometry. The system breathes vast, steady, slow, and somewhere within that rhythm, your breath aligns. Inhale the ring's glimmer, exhale the planet's calm, and as the stars continue their slow, endless dance, you can let your thoughts drift with them, fading gently into the quiet of sleep. The journey has circled once again. The light of Saturn fades, not abruptly, but in slow, forgiving gradients like breath dissolving into mist. The rings no longer gleam as edges. They blur into a faint halo, a whisper of color caught in eternal twilight. You've seen their order, their patience, their quiet labor. Now the sound of movement softens. The shepherd moons drift into the distance, the magnetic hum dims, and every orbit begins to feel like rest. If you could float above the planet now alone but never lonely, you would see something remarkable. Stillness pretending to move. The rings, wide as millions of Earths, glide so smoothly that motion becomes illusion. It is a perfect metaphor for peace activity without anxiety, complexity without noise. Even the planet itself, spinning once every 10 hours, seems at peace with speed. The winds continue, the hexagon at the pole turns, the auroras flicker quietly in green and blue, and yet everything here feels like one long exhale. This is how giants rest, not by stopping, but by finding grace in perpetual rhythm. Imagine now the slow fall of light across the rings. Each particle, some as small as dust, some as large as mountains, catches sunlight for only a moment, then passes it on. The whole system glows not because of any one piece, but because of how they share brightness. That's the secret Saturn has been whispering to you all along. Nothing beautiful is self-contained. The sleepy scientist speaks again, voice barely above a murmur. Every orbit you've seen tonight is also within you. Every balance, every resonance, every gentle release, it's all the same design, written in different scales. The rhythm of rings, the calm of moons, the slow patience of gravity, these are also your pulse, your breath, your rest. Now close your inner eyes. Let the cold gold of Saturn's light settle behind your eyelids. In the space between your breaths, feel how wide silence can be. It stretches across planets, across time, and yet it fits inside your chest. The noise of thought grows fainter here. One by one, ideas drift away like ring particles slipping into the planet's shadow. They are not gone, only quieter, sinking into warmth. Even worry, even memory, finds its orbit and begins to fade. You are left with only rhythm. Inhale, exhale, turn, return, the motion that keeps without needing to move. Far below, Saturn's storms glow faintly beneath thin clouds. Each one has been turning for centuries, powered by sunlight so weak it could not even warm your hand. And still they endure steady, graceful, radiant, with quiet persistence. You too are made of that persistence. The same hydrogen that swirls through those storms once burned in stars, once drifted through space, once fell into oceans, once entered your lungs. It is all the same story, written again and again, until even exhaustion becomes music. Let the edges of the universe blur. Let your heartbeat slow to the same tempo as the orbit of moons. Feel gravity not as weight but as comfort, a reminder that nothing ever truly drifts alone. You are held by bed, by earth, by the invisible hands of motion that cradle worlds. You are safe here, in this soft machinery of the cosmos. The sleepy scientist's voice fades to almost a whisper now, carried by distance and memory. The rings will keep circling long after you sleep. The moons will keep their vigil. The auroras will keep singing light into dark. You don't have to hold any of it. Just rest, and let the world keep turning for you. The last of Saturn's light scatters through space, turning your thoughts into dust, turning dust into stars, turning stars into the quiet rhythm of your breath. Inhale the long arc of dawn somewhere beyond the planet. Exhale the gentle fall of night through the rings. Inhale the gravity that holds. Exhale the letting go that frees. And as the stars continue their slow, endless dance, you can let your thoughts drift with them, fading gently into the quiet of sleep.